we're in a weird spot because I'm going to start competing, but Dave and I eventually want to have kids.
Sure. But if you find yourself, you're in a position where, you're going through some sort of struggle, whether that's a substance, drug, alcohol, or that's just I would suggest really be honest with yourself. If you feel you need help or there's some sort of thing that's bothering you.
This episode is brought to you by First Detachment. First Detachment is an expert formulated supplement company founded by renowned coach Justin Harris. We combine products. We are battle tested. Are you? Find your battle today at firstdetachment.com. All right, YouTube. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in to the First Detachment channel. Really excited. My co-host, Mr. John Rivas, joining us from the Virginia Military Institute. And,
dude, no.
Surprised that so fits you from back in the day.
Yeah.
And then Dave and Jackie Canney are with us today from Blue Collar Bodybuilding. Good friends of ours, Big Paul's, Dr. Todd's, the list goes on and on. They're good people, so we wanted to have them on. They really, an important thing about Dave and Jackie is kind of right around the time when we started to really, form First Detachment. They're some of our first affiliates and really been big supporters of the company. We appreciate all that they do. And they got, some cool YouTube stuff out there. They both do coaching. So we wanted to bring them on and just have a chat. I think you'll find through our discussion today, they got a pretty interesting story. So thanks so much, guys, for joining the show.
Hey, we appreciate it.
Having us.
Excited to party. Let's do it.
All right, good deal. Well, we'll start off how did this whole thing start? So you guys have both been training, that definitely blue collar bodybuilding. For those the listeners out there, check out your Instagram to kind of follow your progress. But both of you have had some pretty massive changes. We'll probably spin up some pictures a little bit later, but I don't know who wants to tackle it first. But how'd you guys get started?
Yeah, I'll go first.
Go
pretty much. It's actually kind of funny. So it's kind of two parts. I kind of got into the lifting and at a young age from sports, wrestling and football, but I didn't really kind of appreciate it at the time. I just looked at it as something the coaches wanted us to do. And, I didn't really get into it thinking I can better myself by doing it. But if you fast forward to when I was maybe, 23, 22, my father got married and I was his best man. And when I went to look at all the pictures, I didn't recognize myself. So I was looking at my father's wedding photo, his album, and I was just like, I can't believe how big I let myself get. I was at the time pushing 280. I was probably really 170-pound guy, just a lot of excess fat. And I just looked at that as something I knew I could change and I wanted to change, and I didn't feel good. And I was just I was kind of drinking heavily at the time. And I just said, you know what, I think I know how to fix this. So let me just, start working on it. So that later on that week, I signed up at a gym and just started kind of lifting. And I was always a bodybuilding fan. So my kind of approach was, bodybuilding, the style of lifting, kind of how I programmed things, how I ate, how I rested, and kind of my motivation came from that.
Dave, really quick, I wanted to ask you, not to cut you off, where are you guys from? I know you're currently where you're at, but where are you guys both from originally?
Born and raised in Massachusetts.
Yeah, Massachusetts.
Okay.
Yeah, we're like a half hour, 40 minutes from Boston.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
But yeah, that's kind of where it started for me, really. And then the next thing I knew, I really fell in love with bodybuilding, the sport, and kind of followed along with a lot of the athletes. And I ended up just losing a bunch of weight and, just kind of kept pushing from there. I had a lot of ins and outs of the gym that we can, we'll explain later on.
Sure.
But, I kind of finally got to this point where a few years ago, I got back into the gym and just got myself back in shape. And I haven't looked back since. And I've really been kind of looking at it like bigger goals, not just keeping myself in shape, and kind of healthy, looking healthy, feeling capable, but kind of having the itch to want to compete, which we're going to be doing soon. And, I just wanted to get involved in the sport. I figured, I researched a ton and I just kind of learned a lot on my own. And I just wanted to kind of had that hunger to want to learn more and do more.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I got the bug to start. And
yeah.
What about you?
Good deal.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't really have any big story, anything, but I was always the scrawny one growing up. I didn't play sports growing up or anything, but I always had a super, competitive competitive personality in me. Dave is the one that actually kind of showed me bodybuilding. I didn't know really anything about it. He started training me kind of randomly. How many years ago was that? I mean,
5+? No. Oh,
it's
no.
definitely more than that.
Yeah, 7 or so years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, probably like 7 or 8 years. And I kind of like just trickled into it a little bit until like one day it kind of just hit me where I was just looking in the mirror and I was just totally unhappy. And I'm like, all right, I'm ready to make this change. He made me take those first pictures. Of course, nobody wants to take those pictures, but thank God you did. But no, he pretty much just showed me how to train, how to eat. I learned everything from Dave, and then I just kind of dug my way in and did my own research and everything. And I just fell in love with it and just was always hungry for more. So I just kept eating and eating because I just wanted to grow. And here we are today. I'm still trying to do the same, but in a different spot at this point. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is a little while ago. I think you've put on a little muscle since then, but we'll show everybody, because what's your total let me just pull this up really quick. What would you say your progress from kind of this time frame was? It's pretty drastic transformation there.
Yeah, so that was that first picture I'm talking about, and I was probably 98 pounds there.
Yeah.
On the right, I'm roughly like 130.
Yeah. And where are you at right now?
I'm still sitting at 130 right now.
Got it.
Yeah. I go up and down between 130 and 135 right now.
Got it.
Yeah.
And is that kind of the plan for, I know, David, you said you're looking to compete soon, and Jackie, is the same for you?
Yeah, absolutely. We're actually doing shows together. We're doing 2 shows in October.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
What class are you going to be in?
Figure.
Okay.
And then I might be bouncing back and forth between figure and women's physique. But I know I still need to put on some decent size to place well in women's physique, but that's definitely the goal.
Got it.
Yeah.
Good deal. Does that bring back memories for you, John, when you first made the transition over to bodybuilding?
I mean, I was going to ask you guys, when you get into the sport and, you start working out, and I remember I was obsessed with, it was like 2004 when I really was streaming the Olympia and all that stuff when they first started streaming it. And it was like Jay Cutler, Ronnie Coleman. So those were the guys I looked up to. They didn't have classic physique. They didn't have some of the more streamlined guys. So that was what I knew. Like, did you guys get magazines or did you look online? Because I'm interested. When I first got into it, like emotionally and whatnot, I was following it. It was like 2004, right? So there's no Instagram, Facebook we were on MySpace. And so it was totally different from today. So I'm sort of interested to hear how people who are starting to compete now, how you guys, like, what motivated you? Like, what do you guys look at that was like, man, I sort of want to do that, or I want to try that?
Well, for myself, it was it's just competitiveness too as well. Like I'm putting so much effort, we're putting so much effort into our physique, our look, we take it so seriously that, the competitive side of it's giving me that itch. But I remember the first time I saw those black and white photos of Dorian Yates, that we all know. And that was the first time I actually saw bodybuilding. I just had never seen a human like that. No football player ever looked like that or anything like, no wrestlers. I had been around a lot of great athletes in wrestling. And but that was just something different. So when I saw that, I was like, I want to look like that, or at least half of that someday. You never know. And then when I realized that he competed and it was a competition about, men against others, and then I eventually got Jay Cutler, became my favorite. And but it was just the competitiveness that really got me saying that motivated me. It's like, I know I work harder and diet harder than a lot of people, so why don't I stack myself up against everyone else and see what I'm made of,
Cool. Yeah. For sure.
Probably the same way, but was there something that kind of gave you the spark?
Yeah. Well, as you all know, we're part of, Better Bodies and Gasp. I've worked for them now I'm going on like 5.5 years now with them. And when I became a part of their community, I didn't really know too much about bodybuilding. I didn't know too many of the athletes, but when I was posting up pictures in the forum and everything, a lot of people were encouraging me to compete or asking if I do compete. And, at that time too, I was still pretty small. So I started thinking about it more, but I didn't start thinking about it probably up until maybe a year and a half ago. I just absolutely just love the lifestyle overall. The lifestyle is never going to change for me, whether I compete or not. So, but yeah, that's basically how I started to get the urge, especially seeing all the motivating pictures that other people post and stuff.
Yeah.
But
yeah, it gives you that edge to want to push you a little further. Like I'm sure John, and when you're looking pretty good, you're thinking like, oh, I kind of got a look that's maybe like a 10-week out look. If there's a show creeping around, I'm sure you get motivated going, well, I want to push myself further. And that's what this whole sport's about, kind of pushing your limits. And some people say like, oh, you're not a bodybuilder till you compete, which, is up for discussion for everyone else. So, but for me, I just kind of wanted to finally see if I am good enough to do it. How, I could care less if I win or lose. I just want to actually get that challenge done.
Well, that's the thing is like everybody, the only way to get better at competing is competing. Like, I think I did 5 or 6 shows, between my teens and early 20s. Left as I was young and really starting to kind of go up. And then Justin, gave me the nudge when I was 39, competed. And ever since I'm like, I need to do it again. Cause that's what I told my wife. I'm like, I did the first show so I could do the second show. I didn't do the first show just for the first show. Cause it's like, I got the good rebound, all that turned out from a work standpoint. I was out of town the weekend of like my nostalgic show. Cause that's the show that I got my butt kicked in. Like 4 out of the 6 of the top 5 guys went pro in my class at a state show back in the early 2000s. And the year before that, Justin won. So being my close friend, like I was nostalgic on like, I want to win this show because my buddy won it, and maybe it was, it might've been a year later or 2 years later. Cause he's a couple years older than me, but, so yeah, you kind of just have to do it. And then, and I know John could speak to this, like each time you get so much better, not only mentally, but like the body can kind of, adjust so much easier. And then you get to stage presence, right, John? Like that's a whole nother thing that, first and foremost, and I know I'll hand it off to John because I'm sure he has a lot to say about this, but you have to be conditioned. Like it doesn't matter how good or bad of a poser you are, like you have to be conditioned. That's the hardest thing that like newer competitors always, get too concerned with, because it's better to be like flat but like in shape than it is to be soft but big and round and gym ripped, right? But then as you build onto that, it's not only like better preparation, it's really building up your weak points. So then it's learning how to pose, because you don't really know, your weak points and stuff. Like I know, for me, when I was younger, I posed a lot better with my lower body because I was taller. This last show, not so much. I was cramping a little bit. And then all the way leading up, I was working on it and thought I had it down. But then when you get on stage, you got the bright lights and all that, like you forget and go back to your natural, like I was standing too tall or whatever. But John, you did a great job at the Arnold, with your posing. And I thought your whole presentation and transitions was rock solid. Like what was that kind of experience like for you?
Well, I think that all goes back to, I wanted to say that I think it's the reason I asked those questions of what motivates you guys, what brings you into the sport, is because when I was younger, I'm like extremely competitive person, not with other people, but with myself. And so I know a lot of people that listen to this podcast, and you guys can be like that. But it was to the point that I lost relationships. I moved states for training and for competing. By the time I was 21, I was on Team USA, squatting 800 at IPF, the World Games, or I'm sorry, at the World Championships, all that stuff. And I come from, like, in my specific experience, it was like do or die, all or nothing. And that's totally cool. And you can accomplish your goals. But I don't regret certain things, but I see you guys have a relationship together. You guys are doing great together. You support each other. I think that's definitely something that people can learn and see that, hey, you can give 110%, but you don't have to sacrifice your life and stop life and just, because at the end of the day, what Joe's, talked about, and competing, right? Whether you want to be Mr. Olympia or not, everyone has a different goal, and no goal is better than the other. No one's more important than the other person. So I think it's super cool that you guys are able to do this together. And that's why I'm sort of interested in, how you guys got started in this. And, to go along with your guys' first competition and people who compete for the first time. When I used to compete in powerlifting, whether it was at nationals, collegiates, all the, junior national championship, all those stuff. I say the scariest thing was on the world stage when you're being broadcast worldwide and there's these giant cameras in your face and you're going against other countries. That was terrifying to me, but I'm glad I experienced those things at such a young age, because by the time I got to bodybuilding, you get on stage, and stage presence is important, what Joe talked about. So when you guys go on for your first time, when anyone goes on for the first time, just be calm about it, right? My experience was, okay, I don't have to walk out 800, 900 pounds on my back, 50 pounds more than I've ever touched in the gym or in my life, squat it down and come up and possibly risk blowing out my knees for my life. Like, I just got to go out there and smile and show, like, as long as you've practiced your poses, you're proud, you're confident, go out there and have a good time. I think that, that'll help you guys a ton, especially at your first shows. You guys are coming out, which is going to be awesome. And if anyone's listening and you're a first-time competitor, it almost says fake it till you make it, but you do need a little bit of experience to understand how the shows run, how your body works, whether it's peaking, whether it's certain poses, but just have fun with it. I think it's super cool. But a big takeaway from that is you guys doing this together, your first shows, keeping each other on point and stuff. That's super cool. I didn't mean to talk too much about it, but I just want to say that's super cool, you guys doing it together.
No, you're definitely right. I can imagine, I can guarantee it'd be a lot tougher if I didn't have, my wife's support. It's just myself or herself going at this goal themselves. So being able to do it, it's kind of a blessing too, being able to kind of experience this together, and we both get the same high out of it and joy out of it, and just when she kicks ass at something, I'm just as ecstatic as she is, and vice versa. But yeah, but you're right. Like Joe says, the other side of the coin is there's no way of getting better without just competing. If you want to be good, we're going to have to do it. So we're pretty excited. We can't wait to finally scratch that itch. And, we're both pretty confident people. Yeah, we're nervous for a first experience, but we don't think we're going to walk out and fall on our face by any means. So.
Speak for yourself. I have to wear heels.
That's
yeah, that's a whole other thing, man. The women, they have, you got the hair, you're judged on like your suit and the heels, there's a lot. There's stage presence with men and how we turn and all that stuff. But yeah, the women, it's a whole nother. I know.
What are the heels? What is the length, the height?
I think mine is probably 3.5, 4 inches.
Good Lord.
And then it has a little platform on the front, but I made sure that I got the heels that inside the shoe it has cushion, because I'm like, when I'm sweating, I'm gonna be like going my shoe. So
well, I actually know of a competitor that was just, I believe she took place second. She was just a hair away from her pro card, and one of the things she was told as she was coming up was like, well, you wore the same suit last time, so we dinged you. When she went to get feedback from the judges, she's like, are you kidding me? Like, do you like, she couldn't say that, but in her mind she's like, do you say that to the guys, like, if they wore the same trunks, like, really? So I guess it depends on the judges, but that was interesting. She's like, it's so expensive to get these suits, but I had to get a different one because she's been at the national level for a while and rotating, and I won't say too much about who it is or whatever in case a judge happens to see this, but but yeah, it's an interesting thing there. But
that's funny. It's something us guys don't think one bit about. I just want my trunks to fit. I could care less if they're pink, black, blue, whatever. It doesn't. I really don't care. Maybe we get one that says first detachment if you want.
There you go.
Too, but
appreciate that.
Amazing the amount of stress the girls have to put into these how it looks, how it fits. Is it gonna fit by the time I purchase it and then step on stage? And then you got to do it all in heels and don't fall. So I guess I'm not overanalyzing my suit after all, because he's been giving me so much crap because of how much I'm like focused on the suit. I told her I'm going to set a stopwatch. You got an hour to figure it out, and don't talk to me anymore about
do that before you start dieting, right? Too hard. But I will say, like, one thing, going back to stage presence, like my first exposure to it very, very young was, of course, pumping iron. Like I had that thing on VHS in my house and just watched it a million times. So what did Arnold do at the beginning? What is he doing? Anybody remember?
He's doing ballet.
Ballet.
Mhm.
Oh yeah,
So when I was a teenager, a good friend of mine was a ballet instructor. And luckily there's no smartphones back then, but I was like, hey, like I'm dead serious. Like, can you work with me? And as a teen, like I was a pretty good poser because of that, but it wasn't like actual ballet, but it was like how to transition and, you know, go from this one to that one. Now I've lost that now since then, but but I will say it made a big difference because it was a lot of like what they teach in ballet. I learned was like, you know, imagine you had like two flashlights on your hips, right? And they had like constantly point this way or point that way. And it was really interesting. But I, you know, now there's posing coaches and stuff, but like that was back in, I don't know, 2001, maybe 2000. Yeah. Something like that. I you know, there's barely an internet at that time. So I don't know of any other way to get help, but it did make a difference. Like the transition and like the flow. I actually did my posing routine. It's buried somewhere online. I have this video somewhere, but to Pink Panther, that song.
really?
Yeah. The guy that coached me, great guy. I'm sure he had the best of intentions, but the one thing he did get right was the song and the routine. Like he helped me nail it. Now the prep, there was like apple juice and all. I mean, it was as bad of a prep you could possibly imagine. I have no idea how I got somewhat in shape on it because it was like the worst food choices that we would never see in a prep now.
Yeah.
But you know, he tried, and I was a kid, so
Did
you know,
use
you learn
different foods on prep than you were used to. Like, did things change once you go on prep?
Well, I think there's just way too much sugar was in the diet.
Yeah.
Things like that. You know, it's more of a healthy diet than it was like a prep diet. And I came from the book I read before that. For anybody who knows, it was the late '90s. Was Dan Duchesne's Body Opus. So before I ever competed, I got like to the point where like the school counselor in high school sat me down because I was just shredded as a high schooler kid because I followed that. And I'm like, no, it's okay. Look, I'm reading this book. And it's like, then, you know, you read his book and just go ahead and Google it. You guys can find it's very, very, how do I put this? He's very opinionated, aggressive, and extreme. So that's the fact that as a 17-year-old kid, I had that in my hands and was following it. I could see why they sat me down, but I didn't care, you know, coming from the pumping iron days of that. So,
well, it's funny you say that with the ballet. I'm sure as a Michigan fan, you're not a fan of Eddie George from when he was an Ohio Buckeye, but Eddie George was a running back for the Tennessee Titans, and he literally when he went pro, got drafted, he did ballet for his rookie year because his footwork was quite terrible. He's one hell of a running back, but a lot of different athletes use that for many different reasons. I think sumo wrestlers, believe it or not, have been known to use ballet to just work better on their hips, and then they're also just having a little bit of balance, I guess, in their footwork.
A lot of yoga is used now too, like hockey goalies and stuff.
Well, John, we want to see some plies, John. What is it? Is it North Americans? Is that the next one you have, John?
Nationals.
Nationals.
December. Okay. Yeah.
December.
I'll try.
Is it in? It's in Texas now, in Arlington.
I think so. Yeah. I think Nationals this year is in Texas. Yeah.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I thought you guys were in Texas. That's why I asked also. My bad.
No, we go to Texas once a year. We're going to try to go twice this year. But we usually go down and visit everybody at destination and, just hang out with some people down there or whatnot, just to catch up.
Yeah.
So now, and you guys are also been kind of, so you both have coaches, but then you're also coaching too. So what's that like? What's your typical clientele and kind of your approach to coaching right now?
Yeah. Most of them, I'd say probably only 10% of the people we have are actual competitors. I mean, probably more that are aspiring to compete, but a lot of lifestyle people, just a lot of general, I guess you'd say fat loss, general health.
Yeah.
We have helped some strength, some people with some strength factors, trying to help them, achieve a certain goal strength wise. But a lot of it is we'll work with really just about anyone that's willing to go ahead and, if we can fix a problem with the diet and with some physical activity, we'll find what works for you. And and just teach. And we're big on teaching. You know, I really, when her and I talked about this, about putting, you know, together more clients and taking on more responsibility, I said, we really just got to teach people. I hate babying people, and I hate people that just want, I'm not a big fan of just like yes man, or people that just tell me what to do. I don't want to hear anything else. And I find that to be a little disservice, you know, and it makes it tougher on us, and it makes it tougher on the athlete, for sure.
Yeah, no sugarcoating.
Yeah. So, but a lot of it's we've prepped a few people for shows, and but most of it's really just kind of, you know, lifestyle kind of people, you know, looking to recomp or whatever. So we're not shy. We'll work with anyone on anything pretty much, but we enjoy it. I love it. It's
we were doing it, like, you know, for the past couple of years, but we've just been getting more
serious about it.
More serious about it. And so we're just like, you know, it's time. Let's just put it out there, announce it to people that we're actually going to take this on and make it legit. So
and you know how it is. If you know, when you're at the gym, people always come up to you, ask for a lot of advice, this and that. Right. So I just kind of started realizing, you know, why don't we make something of it, have a little control over this, you know, help these people and teach, really. So yeah, there's coaching, but it's more of a teaching position. I try to say, you know, that's really big with us. I want people to understand what I'm trying to do with them and why they're doing the certain things.
Right. Like shame on you if you walk away from us and you don't, like, you know, learn what we taught you and kind of take it with you in everyday life and moving forward. So
I always tell my athletes, I say, or whoever, lifestyle clients or whoever, and I'll tell them, I say, if in a year or 2 years or whenever, you know, we stop working together or you move or whatever happens, if you cannot come into the gym and do the things and learn what I've taught you and take everything that I've taught you or I've been able to teach you, or you ask questions, if you can't come in the gym and reproduce all that, then I was a terrible coach, right? My job is to not, as a coach, you shouldn't need me in 5 years. I'm preparing you to be able to do this on your own, right? So if I work with you and then in 2 years you come in and you're still lost or whatnot, then I failed as a trainer, as a coach.
Sure. Yeah. I think I'd feel the same way.
Absolutely.
You know, especially you spend so much time on this, like you as the coach, you spend a lot of thought into these people's life or their goal. You know, you'd hope that you get the same out of them. So it's really exciting because a lot of everyone we work with now really kind of looks forward to learning, and then it makes it easier. We can kind of progress to more advanced things, or we can try pushing their limits because they understand what to expect. So yeah, I really enjoy it. But you know, some of the fun ones are just people that are literally start from know nothing about nutrition, nothing about training, and then you make something. You know, they see their goals coming along week by week in progression. You know, every time they take their check-in photos, or you see how excited they are in their notes to let you know, oh, you know, I'm down another 2-3 pounds or whatnot. It's exhilarating to me because we're helping people. You know, getting paid to do it. It's in the sport that you have a passion for.
Right.
And, you know, you feel you're definitely helping. So I love everything about it. And that's to me is my long-term goal, is to make some sort of career out of the coaching aspect, you know, or at least the bulk of what I do. So that's kind of what we're working on right now. And we're just having fun doing it at the same time.
Well, I know I said this earlier, but I think it's important to note, you know, like, obviously, you know, Big Paul worked with Justin, even though he knew his stuff. You know, he still worked with them, kept researching. You guys worked with Big Paul. Now you're both with different coaches, not because of anything with Big Paul, but like you just felt, you know, had little different needs from a female perspective and so on. And so I think that's like a really important thing for coaches, because even myself, I mean, I think I have 7 certs, a bunch of years of experience in formal education, all that nonsense. But I still, Justin, I was like, here you go. Here's the wheel. Like, tell me what to do for my last prep, to where, you know, you just learn so much more when someone's looking at you and walking through it. And then depending on your prior background, it's really like a good cheat code. I think we were talking a little bit earlier, like we interviewed John Jewett not too long ago. Like, he's got a great coaching certification on his platform. I'm trying to push Justin to, you know, help me basically pin him down to put together a coaching certification, because I think he's such a good educator. Like, I think it'd be awesome. It's just a matter of he's just so busy all the time. It's like, okay, ready, set, film, talk. But no, there's a lot of good resources out there. And I think that the best, there's certifications and trainings, but the best, and, you know, I'm sure John can echo this, is doing, like, once you actually go through and compete, you're like, no, like, this is why this happens. That's like that next level, if you will. And I will say, earlier in my career, because I started as a trainer, that's what I was doing out of school, and I struggled on the opposite end, because I was, to your point, John, I was so hardcore. Like, people are like, well, do I get a cheat meal? I'm like, what are we celebrating? We still have 30 pounds to lose. Like, I was too hardcore to where now I like, of course, hindsight, like, I realize that, but the ones who could put up with me, I got good early in my sales process or onboarding process to get that out, because I felt terrible if, like, someone wasn't getting, you know, the benefit out of it because I was too strict. So I found out later, like, that doesn't work with the Gen Pop, or they're not as hardcore.
Right.
But yeah, I'm curious too, because, like, you know, Jackie, with you, we've had a lot of guys on the show. I know David, you put on quite a bit of size, but we're not quite as fortunate to have as many females on, you know, women talking about how you were able to, one, you know, put on a little over, you know, 30 pounds, and probably leaner than you were, right? Than even in some of those pictures. Can you just kind of walk through, like, that experience, just the mental as well as the physical? Because I don't know how that was with the scale too, or just kind of, maybe if you can unpack that for us.
Yeah, I mean, so first, I'm not scale focused whatsoever. Definitely base everything off the mirror. I always have been that way. But when I was small, like, obviously the goal was always to get bigger. So I would just, you know, I would do bulk after bulk, but obviously the process of bulking up and then leaning out, bulking up, leaning out. But, I mean, hold on, I'm stuck. Sorry.
Yeah.
I just went blank.
Well, I know it's definitely something that she had to learn, that it doesn't happen overnight. Like, we all start to learn that mental grind that's inevitable for everybody. Even if you're Nick Walker, it still takes time, you know, for sure.
Yeah. No, I mean, every year I was probably putting a consistent, like, 10 pounds on a year, I would say, because this October coming up, when we compete, I'm going to be celebrating pretty much 6 years of my journey.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I would say definitely this past year has been the most significant one, just because of all the knowledge that we have at this point. And it's funny. It's like every year you begin to, like, pinpoint things down, like all the little details really mean something. Like, you really don't think about that when you're first starting out, and the more advanced you get, those little tiny details just make everything way more crisp, way more easier, makes things cruise along faster. But yeah, I mean, ultimately it was just, I'm a hard gainer, so I really had to put down the food, and I can actually put down a lot of food in general. Like, my high days, right now, I take into probably 700 grams of carbs on my high day.
Yeah.
So,
wow.
Yeah.
That's
And
a lot for 130 pounds.
and honestly, I'm cruising right through it, no problem right now.
Yeah.
I definitely take more food, but
Yeah, when she was working with Paul told us that her, male or female, was probably like top 5 fastest metabolisms of anyone. You know,
Yeah.
He had like a handful of guys that ate more in general.
Well, that's a lot from him, because I know that's his case. Like, he was having unlimited high days, like 3 weeks out from a show.
Yeah. When I was with Paul too, he put me up to 3 high days. He's like, you're one of only like 3 people I have on 3 high days. He's like, your superpower is your metabolism. So, but yeah, no, putting on size has been difficult for me. It's been my ongoing struggle always. So, like, the mental mindset for me, you know, when I lean out, now I don't feel this way. I feel very, very good about how I look when I lean out with the muscle mass. But when I was growing and stuff, I would be leaning out and I'm like, I look small. Like, I couldn't stand it. So coming from a small place, I never wanted to go back to being smaller. So that's my biggest mental, for sure.
No, it makes sense.
Yeah.
What about, like, differences? You know, are there any differences you saw? I mean, between, like, seeing what David's plans look like and your plans? Are there any differences between men and female or women that you've seen and in the approach overall?
Um,
I mean, I'd say that it seems that with most females, the fats seem a little bit higher.
yeah, for sure.
But really, I guess it's just been case dependent. I mean, her right now she's in a situation where all of her foods are picked for her. Where with Paul, we were able to just go off an approved foods list. So I think she's starting to see the magic in being able to just stick with something rather than fitting in your macros. You're actually just staying consistent and finding out what works for you best. There's not really much big difference. I mean, she kind of eats like a male competitor. She lifts like a male. I mean, it's pretty. The funny thing is, I say I can never give any credit to myself for her success in her growth, throughout her journey, except for the one thing I did accidentally is I trained her like a male open bodybuilder on day one.
Yeah,
because I didn't know any different at the time.
Sure.
I was still learning, but and she fell in love with that. So it wasn't a shock for her when she decided that I want to put on size, that we were already doing the training for it. We, just a matter of food and time.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I used to enjoy doing more like powerlifting in the beginning as well. And I actually put up some pretty decent weight, but with time, I've developed a neck issue. So I no longer do like any compound movements, because as soon as that flares up on me, it's just like, it's horrible.
Yeah,
so
no squat, bench, or deads anymore.
Yeah, everything's just isolation at this point. So strictly in the bodybuilding, no more powerlifting at all. But it was fun while it lasted.
And now you mentioned food choices. Are there any different maybe foods that you find work better for you at different times, or any examples that come to mind as far as maybe that weren't on the food list before? Or
Trying to think. Honestly, there's not. They chose a lot of things that I like. Obviously, I have to do that, but I mean, it was pretty much the same, I'd say. But they just incorporated more fruit, more vegetables. The one thing I'm on a kick now is adding olive oil to my chicken rice and chicken potato. I think that's excellent, especially for digestion. But yeah, no, nothing that I was doing before is drastically different that I'm seeing like a big, difference of performance or anything.
Yeah, I'd say fruit and micronutrients definitely went up on her for that. Because, I mean, when you're eating that amount of food, we all don't want to eat our vegetables or don't have room for banana or berries or whatever, where guys, like myself, I might be starving. I'll eat a whole pint of blueberries or whatnot. But,
right.
yeah, that'll pay dividends in the long run if I do it for sure.
Yeah. We were, ultimately, the reason why I switched over to Dr. Todd Lee is because of women's hormones. And I was dealing with a situation which happened to me a couple times, but this stretched out a little longer, was I didn't get my my period for a good amount of time. And so talked to him, went through stuff, and I'm just we're in a weird spot because I'm going to start competing, but Dave and I eventually want to have kids.
Sure.
So that's why it was so important for me to jump on with Dr. Todd Lee to really get the education on all that going forward. So
yeah, I know we were talking about that before. It's one thing that I found really interesting with some of my background was, men are on a 24-hour hormone cycle, women are on a 24 and a 28 to 32 day. So in a lot of medicine or diet plans or the fitness industry, it's starting to get better, but a lot of it is more based, not ill-intended, but more based on males. And then one of the things that is out there a lot, which there's some good that comes with it, like David said, that from the putting on size, but women are not little men either. They're women. So there's some pretty big endocrinology differences there, and understanding that. So that's why I was kind of curious about like the food choices, the micronutrients. There's a lot in there. We can probably unpack a whole nother episode about estrogen methylation and things of that nature that kind of help with all those things. And then, there's a lot of really good data out there on like what phase of a cycle a woman's in and how their insulin sensitivity adjusts. Are they in ovulation? Is it the luteal phase? Like when progesterone goes up, et cetera. There's different foods that do match different times, which for men we're like, wait, what did you just say? Like, blah, blah, blah. Like I just zoned out. I was kind of forced to learn it. That was kind of the joke. It's some of the work I previously did. I was like, I know more than 99% of women about a menstrual cycle. I wish I didn't. I was like, so, but it is kind of interesting to look at that. And I would have never looked at it that way until just a couple of years ago. But
Yeah,
Mr. Rivas, what? Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to. Kind of.
I was just going to quickly say on that topic, one thing that as I started to educate myself more on those topics as we were, she was switching over to Dr. Todd, was, women seem to be, some of these things can be more sensitive on women than men, certain diet or being more restrictive on foods, or also, how lean they carry themselves can play a, we were starting to find out Jackie was really carrying herself so lean, even at the top of a bulk, that pushing food and, having all these small variables played a real big one piece to the menstrual cycle for her, so it was difficult trying to find out, well, where do we start? Is it how lean she is? Is it something actually hormonal? Is it supplementation? I mean, what could it be? Where some of us guys, our problems are usually just start here, and you're probably going to hit the problem.
Right.
You're probably going to solve the problem pretty quickly.
Right. Well, yeah, that's why I said, like, this past year, I had 10 times better progress than I ever did. And I was at the point where I had more muscle mass and very lean. So I think that was the correlation to is why that happened ultimately.
Yeah.
Mr. Rivas, any questions there? I might have talked over you a couple of times.
No, you're good. I was going to say, Jackie, do you notice that your level of fat intake changes the length of your cycle, or does it sometimes mess it up at all? Like when you've gone too low with fats?
Well, it's funny you say that because that's what we kind of were paying attention to more. But ultimately, like when I was with Paul switching over to Dr. Todd Lee, it was the same amount of fats pretty much.
Yeah, just a touch more, not a whole lot.
Yeah, just a little bit more. So honestly, I can't fully answer to it because I can't say that I fully have paid attention to it on that level.
Okay.
Yeah, that's one thing we talked about paying attention to is we're going to start, mapping that time of the month and being able to try to collect as much information, just as we do with our clients. We literally are crazy about collecting as much info as we can.
Yeah.
So shame on us for not doing that on our end. It's a learning experience,
Sure.
She'll definitely be able to, between taking her temperature various times, charting out that cycle, and that'll definitely help. So
yeah,
we don't have enough data to give you an answer for that at this point, really.
Yeah, 'cause now that I'm with Dr. Todd Lee, there's a lot more charts I'm filling in. I wasn't doing that type of stuff on this level, so
a lot of homework.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, like I said, I mean, it's definitely more of a complex system, and it's it's like it's definitely a balance, right? So you're definitely looking at that picture, right? You can see you're making massive changes. So just like in a man where maybe they have like a blood pressure issue or something like that, in women they could certainly have blood pressure issues, but it's probably going to be more, the earlier symptoms that are going to show up is going to be through kind of just their normal hormone patterns throughout the month is going to be affected, a lot sooner, to where guys, it's pretty straightforward. We don't have that problem, but we may find like, oh, I think I'm pretty badass because my face is purple or it's bright red while I'm lifting. It's like, yeah, that's not good. Like, I mean, when I was younger, it was a goal when we had squats, I'd be like pissed because like if Justin got a bloody nose and I didn't, but really that was, I wasn't training hard enough. But you look back, it's like, oh, it's probably something to do with all of our blood pressure. You ever experience any of those, John, and any of your squats there with 800 pounds?
No, so the only thing that would happen to me was I was lucky enough not to have thin capillaries or blood vessel walls in my nasal passages, but I would always blow.
That's my excuse now. Okay.
So I would always.
Justin has weak nasal passages. If anybody knows that, be sure to comment.
I would see guys that every time they squat, it blows. So I mean, whether it was a max temp or not, it would blow. So obviously they need to get that cauterized. But my thing would be, so when I first started powerlifting, it was before Raw. All right, I'm dating myself, but it was before Raw. So we'd have the bench shirt and we'd be coming down, and the amount of pressure it would put on our head, my eyes would always blow. And so I'd at the time I was in college at the time, Virginia Military Institute, And I remember going to like an econ class one time, and I think I didn't do so hot on an exam, which I'm not surprised. But I went up to the teacher, and my whole eye was just completely bloodshot red. Like the whole thing looked like I had got baseball bat to the eye. And I was like, I don't think I got the right grade. And he looked at me, he's like, oh my God, just trying to intimidate him. But no, that's the only thing that ever happened to me. It's good though. Sometimes that would worry me a little bit genetic wise. Anytime I would see people with that would bleed a lot, because so a weakness in a capillary, or it doesn't necessarily mean there are other weaknesses, but it could mean that you could have like a genetic predisposition to weaken veins. And if you get one in your brain, that's no bueno. Yeah. So that's always something. If you guys see someone who bleeds a lot from his nose or different places, make sure to keep an eye on that and watch that blood pressure, because it spikes when all of us are lifting, in a whether it's a hack squat or a drop set or a deadlift. I mean, our blood pressure spikes insanely. So keep an eye on that if you guys ever experience that.
And it might be just simple, like you said, somebody might just be on the edge of been running high blood pressure and they don't realize it. They're just on the edge of a nosebleed. We're bending over to pick up their, phone they dropped to trigger it. And, so yeah, that makes sense. There's a few things to pay attention to. I've only had it a couple times, and that's just from playing around with too much Anadrol, probably, to be honest.
Yeah, at least you're honest. That's good. Yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
Well, but speaking of,
that's one thing we keep in line a lot is, these things, small things like blood pressure, and really paying attention to our insulin sensitivity are like two factors that we feel are going to play a huge role in our health, period, down the road. So if we can manage them now, and that's no excuses, no getting around it, no ifs, ands, or buts. I do that with my clients too. If you can't buy a blood pressure monitor, I'm not going to be your coach.
Yeah.
My own personal preference,
Dave and Jackie, this is something cool. I tell some clients about this, if they want it or not, but this is actually sort of a mini EKG. Yeah. So I have this at home, and I have the app, and it literally just reads my EKGs as many times as I want during the day, whenever. So that thing's, I mean, it's probably like $70 to $80 from like CVS or something. But if you're worried about some arrhythmia, which a lot of bodybuilders and people do when we compete, whether we diet or we get too much water weight in the off season, that's a good tool to have also.
Yeah. You find it pretty accurate?
Yes.
And consistent?
Yeah. Yeah, I would say it's more because I'd say I have a harder time with blood pressure cuffs because I can't fit them on my arm. Yeah. So I have to use the wrist ones. And I have to put my arm, of course, with the heart like a certain way, because it'll read it right. It'll read it well, and it'll read it a couple times well. And then I'll just adjust it. So I put my arm a little lower. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, I go from 128 over 60 to 190 over 50 or 190 over 90 or something like that. And if your arm, it sucks for bigger people because it's hard to, so I would say I have more problems with the blood pressure cuff than the other one.
Yeah.
Gotcha. What are things you guys do to monitor your, you're mentioning, monitor your blood pressure and then your blood, your blood glucose levels, blood sugar. What are things you guys do? What are some techniques out there maybe for people listening in?
You mean to keep them in line?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the first things first, just by monitoring it right off the bat, so where you're starting. But for blood pressure, I mean, it depends on. At first, I'd monitor it, and then it just really depends on what seems to be the issue. It could be multiple different things. But insulin sensitivity, other than checking our glucose throughout the week, just at certain times, whether it's a high day where we're really pushing the food and the carbohydrates mainly.
Right.
But supplementation, I mean, we use our first Detachment, we use our suppressor, which we just couldn't live without.
Sure.
I don't know about you, but I see a lot of people just add that in and start to recomp right away with it, which is nice. So, there you go.
Yeah, I have mine upstairs.
But stuff like that, I mean, food choices, I mean, I try to make sure that I try to make sure that my food choices for my carbohydrates are kind of make sense to me. Anyhow, I'm still one of those people that are an oatmeal in the morning and oatmeal before bed, just to kind of slow down, get the lower glycemic carb in at that point.
Sure.
And then I just try to get the faster food it starts to escalate up the faster carbs near my workout window. So the best thing I can do is just try to make sure that whatever I'm eating is being stored and not around in my blood. And I'll know that by checking my blood glucose, taking notes, and then over time, but stuff like also just good training and cardio really seems to help with the blood glucose level. People don't think of that.
For people out there that maybe have never tested it, can you walk through like how often you test it? What's your, protocol? Yeah. Is it every day? Is it, every other day? Like, depending on high, low day, etc. What does that look like?
So, I mean, I'll test, I usually test my glucose on my high days. I'll test them before each meal that I might be supplementing with insulin. So I just check in, and if I'm above a certain range, I try to keep myself 80 to 100 on my reading. I'll do it from meal 1, meal 3, meal 5.
Is this after or before?
Before my meal. Yeah.
Before your meal. Yep. No, that's all right. That's fine.
Yeah. Pre-meal, I'll check it.
I assume just for everybody out there wanted to make sure.
Yeah. Sorry, I misspoke. But
good.
Yeah, so that's what I'll do on my high days. And then periodically I'll just check them actually fasted throughout the week and see how I'm waking up. See if there's any changes, or if I feel a little weird after training, I might just check in and see if I need, because I rarely actually ever need to use supplement insulin into my program, even on these high days, maybe once throughout the day instead of a couple times. So between like sometimes metformin or a berberine, that seems to keep things down. But yeah, I check it when I'm using carbohydrates the most, so I can keep myself throughout the day, like I said, utilizing those nutrients. And then I'll check fasted throughout the week a few times.
What's like your sweet spot range that you find yourself fasted normally in?
I'm usually actually 80 to 85.
Oh, wow.
Okay. It's pretty good.
It's really good.
Yeah.
That's really good.
I've never even seen myself above 115 ever. So, it seems like that my pancreas is working properly at this point. But the other idea is not to just let that do all the work for me. I do want to make sure that I'm preserving the health of my pancreas over time. So stuff like, like our suppressor, the berberine, and the, insulin when needed can just help alleviate that pressure on the pancreas. So I'm not burning it out quick,
And did you notice that's a lot easier to manage as you started to build more and more muscle mass?
Yeah, I'd say so. Especially as I got leaner, So the more body fat I carry around, it's my sugar seems to climb because I'm obviously becoming more insulin resistant to a point. But I've been fortunate. I mean, I've never had any scares where it's actually. Funny thing is, when I got my blood work done one time, my glucose must have been wrong on the blood work. It said 47. It's like, there's no way. I just ate. Yeah, I know it's supposed to be fasted, but I didn't care. I just ate, and I went in there, and I wasn't looking for anything that was necessarily fasted orientated. But no, it stays pretty good for me. I've been pretty lucky. I'd say same with yourself.
Yeah, same with me. I'm about in the 80 to 90 range, and I wake up in the morning.
Yeah. Interesting.
That's all you want to do is keep that sweet spot. I mean, it's not one of those things where you just blood sugar, you don't want to just keep crashing it down. So there is a zone you want to operate in and keep it in, so if it does get low, you do need to introduce some glucose into the system for sure.
Sure. John, any more follow-up questions before we start to transition to kind of a little shoot, move, communicate here?
Yeah. Before we move into our last part, I just wanted to, I know, Dave, you had mentioned, you had said before, publicly, you had talked about some struggles and things you had gone through in the past. I think that a lot of people go through certain things in life that cause them to try to find an outlet, whether it be eliminate the pain, whether it be take your mind off things, whether it be try to forget the life you're living, try to live another life for a few minutes or hours or whatever. Not to go too deep into it, but what advice would you give to people who may be stressed out? You guys are blue collar bodybuilding.
Yeah.
Maybe working a 9-to-5, maybe working, I worked for a hospital doing IT for a few years. I remember there's one time, I worked 21 days straight, and I hated my life. And, I was just in a state of, it could have been depression, at this point, looking back on it, but it was just like, I was just not happy all the time. So what would you recommend to people? You know, obviously you found fitness, but what would you recommend to people going through stuff like that? You know, what would you do to not fall back into those bad habits or vices?
Yeah, sure. So, well, I might as well mention to everyone, which I've put on my own YouTube channel and just kind of explained to others I'm a recovering alcoholic myself, 2.5 years clean now. And when I explained earlier that I've been lifting for a while and I'd get in good shape, then I'd fall off the wagon. It would literally be because of drinking. I'd find myself in a position where I'd start drinking and then, have to lose 80 pounds again once I got too fat. And then this cycle kind of repeated itself. But what I'd suggest to people is, I was at a position I didn't think I was ever going to get clean or get better. I kind of gave up on myself at one point. But if you find yourself, you're in a position where, you're going through some sort of struggle, whether that's a substance, drug, alcohol, or that's just stress, because that's what I was doing. I was so stressed working 7 days a week. I own multiple businesses. I mean, talk about blue collar bodybuilding. I literally call into Paul's podcast in my tractor while I'm talking with him. So, and they always think it's funny, but I would suggest really be honest with yourself. If you feel you need help or there's some sort of thing that's bothering you, whether that's your parent or a good friend you can talk to, someone that's just comfortable, a wife or significant other, reach out for help. I mean, there's no shame. Even if you think you're a big, strong individual that anything comes your way, you can tackle it. You're not. There's some things, alcohol was my kryptonite. So I had to be honest with myself. I looked at myself. I said, wow, third time I'm going to have to get myself from being nearly 300 pounds into making myself happy, being fair to my wife. I was dragging her through pretty much hell just in the position I was, just kind of self-imploding to a point.
Yeah.
So I'd suggest what helped with me was just coming forward to my wife and then coming forward to my family. She knew I was a drinker, but my family didn't know to the extent. But I went to the point of even telling my employees I work 7 days a week. A lot of them really look to me for the direction of the company and where we're going. I had to tell them all honestly where I'm at and why I'm going to step away for, a week and get myself clean and go to a detox facility and whatnot. Yeah. So my biggest suggestion is don't lie to yourself, is just be honest with whatever scenario you're in. If John finds himself in a position of, anxiety or depression, or he's just not happy with something, tell someone about it. Hear their point of view. You'll take coaching for bodybuilding. Why don't you take advice for life? And then just be real with yourself. And I found bodybuilding actually was a great insert for me because being sober and bodybuilding are very similar goals. If you really think about it, it's a day-by-day process. Staying sober in bodybuilding is one day at a time, but you are just striving constantly to improve to a long-term goal. And there's really no end. In bodybuilding, you can win the Olympia one day, but there's still no end. You're never really truly satisfied. You're trying to strive for more. And unfortunately, with sobriety, there's not like you achieve a certain level and they go, you're cured, you're all done. It's something I'm going to have to deal with forever. And I guess just being honest, the best thing that kept me sober this time was not trying to tackle this by myself. I put myself into a detox this time. I told my wife, we're getting a breathalyzer in the house so we can build some trust. If you think I'm drinking and I'm or whatnot, I'll never, just go ahead and ask me to breathe into the breathalyzer.
Never had to use it, by the way.
Yeah, luckily
he wanted to do that.
It's more of a deterrent.
Exactly.
Yeah, putting some things in place. So now, so I've been good ever since, and really communication's been key. My marriage with my wife's never been better ever since we've really just said there's nothing that we can't tell each other or talk about. So that's what I'd suggest is don't really suppress anything. Just be pretty open about it. You'll find yourself actually feeling relieved. And you might find that you get into a position where you're now the one that can help somebody as well. I've dedicated a portion of my, pretty much my podcast on my own show, on our own channel, to talk with people. That we have a ton of interviews with other bodybuilders that have gone through things like anorexia, things like drug addiction. Actually, two guys from my gym were only separated being sober by 4 days. And I was interviewing one of them, and he actually went to the same detox, the same hospital, the same S-hole that I went to, a terrible hospital. But anyways, the same place 4 days apart. So I literally walked out the door, was sober. He was walking in, and we met in the gym later on, started talking, found out all about this, and I interviewed him about it. So yeah, I appreciate you bringing it up, because it is something I'm passionate about. I think a lot of people don't realize what they're capable of when it comes to the adversities they're facing. It's just a matter of, like, stepping up and trying to improve on it and be able to fall on your face. It took me 3 times to get sober to realize I can't do it on my own. I have to put some things in place. So definitely happier for it, and I'm on a better path, and I'm alive and sober, haven't had a drop.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you sharing that.
That's good. That's good.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And Jackie, just curious, from your point of view, like I think, what are some things out there you'd say to people that are helping someone who's trying to go through that change? Obviously, David was mentioning you a couple of times about being a main support. You said you went through and, struggled 3 different times, went through it. Right. So like, how did you approach that? I'm just curious. And what are some things you took away in that process?
I mean, if you love the person, you're obviously never going to give up on the person. I just, kept sticking it out, because I knew I've seen Dave sober a couple times, and I knew exactly who he was, and I'm like, this isn't him. And I knew one day he was going to snap out of it, I mean, so there's not too much to say other than, if you love the person, you're going to stick by them. Just stick it out, and try to work at it with them. Like, try and make sure you tell them that you're there for them no matter what. Just you gotta stick your hand out there for them all the time. So be by their side.
It's big how patient she was with me, because again, nothing happens overnight. I might have a scenario where I don't think of drinking for 3 weeks. There might be a day where I think of it every time I drive by a liquor store, So her patience wasn't her specialty, but luckily she's learned it by helping me. So
no, I appreciate you guys sharing that, because like I said, it's a tough thing for both of you to go through, right? Because it's I know with family members, close friends, it's like sometimes it's just it's tough. And I think there's a lot of, you mentioned, like David, like when you're struggling to reach out, but I think also like for spouses or family members to reach out. That's something that our family went through a situation early on where I remember my parents even saying they like regretted not getting help for the people who didn't have the addiction issue, because it was how to support it and how to not blame yourself. And I think, Jackie, you said it perfectly, because I 100% agree. I know like my one of my brothers wouldn't mind me sharing it, but it's literally like the best person I've ever talked to. Like just amazing man. He started 3 different companies from nothing, grew them and lost them all from addiction, and then started it back up and then did it again. It was like night and day person. And he would tell you today, that got in a little bit of trouble, and that was like the best thing for him, because it's like he, been clean for quite some time now. So I certainly know how hard it is as a family member or someone close, so.
Right. I know, like once you get that glimpse of seeing them be just awesome on point, you're like, I know it's there. It's going to come back out sooner or later. So.
Gotcha. Well, it took the wind out of the sails for Shoot, Move, and Communicate, but we'll still do it. I appreciate you guys sharing that. I think that's definitely going to be a really helpful nugget out there for our audience.
And if you don't mind me saying, if anybody, listens to this and they need someone to reach out to that's not mom or dad or wife that has some skin in the game, my door is always open. Just, I'll do my best to give you my 2-cent advice that I can.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I saw some of your episodes, but I didn't realize how many interviews you had with that. So, definitely for those out there, Blue Collar Bodybuilding, the YouTube channel, check that out for, not only like coaching and training, but also you guys, interviewing different guests, struggling with different things. I think that's really cool to, it's always awesome to hear when someone takes a negative, flips it to a positive, right? And just using it for good. So, all right. Well, I think we kind of know the answer to this question, but you can give another one. So I'll start off with Shoot, Move, Communicate. First one we'll talk with is, what accomplishment so far has made you most proud? We'll kind of have you each go yourself individually.
What accomplishment in bodybuilding or just in general?
In general.
Oh, wow.
We'll keep it open.
One.
Just learning to be I'm proud of just being a kind of a good I guess a good leader for my family. You know, that's kind of like the role that I'm the last one to pass on the Canney name. You know, a lot of my family at this point kind of looks at me for the direction. So I'm happy that that's kind of my responsibility, and you know, I'm pretty proud of that. You know, to fulfill it at some point, I guess you'd say.
Yeah, good deal.
This is a hard one for me. I don't know.
Probably your businesses as well. I mean,
so you're saying overall in general life?
Yeah, what's one of your favorite accomplishments?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I definitely my businesses for sure. I mean, that's what created who I was pretty much.
Yeah, started from nothing.
Yeah, started from nothing. Right.
Tell us a little more about your businesses.
Right when I graduated high school, I started a house cleaning business. So I've been doing that now for 13 years. I still have probably 8 clients since I first started. They've been with me for 13 years. So,
wow.
And then I became an esthetician. So I have my own little studio. And now doing the coaching, and then I also work with Better Bodies and Gasp. So I'll keep myself fairly busy.
Yeah, well, first job was answering phones at Dr. Mulch, my business. Yeah.
There you go. Good deal. Well, the next one is so both you guys are entrepreneurs, so that's pretty cool. A lot of overlap there. I get in trouble a lot as an entrepreneur because I've had two. Well, I met my wife in more of a corporate setting, so at least we had HR. If I was being an idiot, I couldn't get in too much trouble. But the last 2 businesses, not so much. As a partner in both, it was, I get put in my place often. So she's more logistics and realistic. I'm more like, no, like let's get this stuff out there. It's like, no, it's not ready to launch. So any screw ups, if something wasn't in time, and I said it wasn't, and our marketing said it was in time, is on me, not her. So if you guys are upset with me, trust me, she already went to bat. She already went to bat for you. So, all right. Well, next up, we'll talk about, what is the accomplishment you had most proud, maybe in someone else's life? If it's either, because you guys do so much for other people. I know it's, your employees, your clients, or maybe it's someone you're impacting through your outreach with, people struggling with addiction. Did any come to mind, something that sticks out to you as a proud moment or situation?
I'd say it's not bodybuilding related, but I've helped quite a few of my a couple of my employees start their own businesses. That they'd gotten to a point where that they were good enough on their own and just wanted to branch out. So I'm pretty proud of that myself, seeing that I could help someone else in that sense. I believed in them, and I was willing to just say, hey, as much as I love to have you work with us, you need to go in this direction and helping them. So
good deal.
Yeah.
I'm not good with these. I would say, help me out here. Proudest moment. Well, I would say ultimately one of my proudest moments would be marrying this guy right here. But yeah, I'm going to go with that one.
There you go. How long you guys been married for?
Well, we're going to be hitting 3 years this July, but actually this Friday we've been together for 13 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good deal. John, did you have one burning? You got a question burning?
Okay. So try not to, just give me what's over the top of your head.
No.
What do you guys hope to come away with from your first show? Whatever it is.
A gold medal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So much for doing it just for fun, right? First place.
Well, I mean, to be successful, but to feel satisfied for sure. I don't want to feel disappointed in myself. So even if I got last place, as long as I was happy with the effort I put in, I guess feeling satisfied would be huge for me. Because if I look back and I say, you could have done better, I'll never, I'll be, that's something I can't fix,
Right.
I couldn't agree more with that.
Yeah. Same for you.
Yeah, 100%.
All right, last 2 for you. If you had to skip a meal, a training session, or a night of sleep, what would it be?
Say that one more time.
A meal, a training session, or a night of sleep, what would it be?
I'd say sleep.
He's like Justin.
Yeah, I'd say a meal.
She's like me.
Right, we got a little
disagreement
there. We got
Yeah, she needs her sleep or
Yeah.
she'll bite my head off. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the gym, I mean, that's what keeps me in tune. So
There you go.
a meal.
All right, good deal. Well, lastly, as you guys know this, of course, right? At First Detachment, we talk about being all in, right? And so the question is, what is something you're currently really passionate about, and that you would say that you're all in about?
Well, me, I'd say just I'm pretty much passionate about trying to help others, whether it's through the coaching or just through I've come to the point where with my own sobriety, I think I can help others. I'm not just someone that I need to be babied along myself. I feel I can have a little bit to contribute. So I'd say that, yeah, I'm pretty all in to help others, and I'm hoping that what I do and the little bit of exposure I get will definitely help make that easier for sure. Yeah. What are you all in on?
Yeah, I mean, I would say I'm all in on just being the most positive person I can be, and just changing the world through, all that positivity, through fitness, just all the things I love,
Sure.
ultimately. So
good deal.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much, guys, for coming on the show today. John, any closing thoughts, comments?
Yeah, last thing. When is your guys' show again? Just let everyone know.
So we thought we were going to do the Vermont show on August 8th, but I guess it's in August. So we're going to try to do the East Coast Cup in Connecticut, and then the New England Championships in Lynn, Mass.
So both of those in October.
Yeah, October 7th and October 28th. So
we're gonna done it for you guys, and hope you guys awesome. We'll probably bring you probably not the end of prep, but probably like mid prep to see how everything's going, and how your training's going, how your diet's going. I know poor Joe, before I did, I got to a point where I'm like, Joe, I don't want to talk this week. And so we had to kibosh our podcast. So we'll bring you guys on maybe like 6 weeks out.
I was like, Justin, did you cut his fat? He's like, yes. I'm like, all right, fair enough.
Yeah, and if all goes well, then the 28th, I'll be 3 years sober and on stage on a bodybuilding show. So
awesome,
congrats, man.
We're rooting for you. Make sure you guys are vlogging about that post, because we're gonna send people your way to check it out. I think that's gonna be really exciting for others to follow your journey. Yeah. And again, guys, be sure, for all the listeners out there and viewers, check out Blue Collar Bodybuilder. So it's their YouTube channel, Instagram. You'll see both of them on there. A lot of fun content, but also a lot of good motivational stuff, movements, exercises, and you're going to see some 1D pop up, which we always appreciate as well. So thanks so much, guys, for tuning in. We'll see you. Have a good night.
Thanks, guys.